We can pretend that we're live because I'm pretty sure we are.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our next episode of Top Deck Heroes. I'm your host, as always, the millionaire, Sean O'Brien. We've got the complete package, Kevin Broberg, and Matt Hughes, the architect. So, welcome, everybody. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. It's actually been kind of a busy week for UFS news.
It has.
Quite a
Let's
few things have happened.
let's start first with the bombshell we dropped at the end of last week's episode. Warriors of the Night is now sold out through Jasco Games. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it is Neomax status in the sense that that it's $200 a box just yet, but it's going that direction.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely going that direction. I think UFS has grown significantly in the past year, and I think it's actually grown beyond what the projected print run was for.
I think that's very likely, yeah.
Considering... Go ahead.
Well, especially since there's the unsealed peggable packs don't exist, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that we've seen, at least. I know people that actually go to Hastings have said they haven't seen it.
Well, I haven't been able to purchase any, so I'm guessing they don't exist.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
only booster boxes, and there are no more booster boxes in Jasco Games Warehouse. So you can still likely buy them at your local game store, at a distributor. Your game store can buy it at a distributor. Obviously, you as a viewer probably can't, but there are no more to be purchased from the source.
Right. So going forward, your local game store, your favorite online store, and there's a possibility that they'll run out. I know.
So what does this mean for us, for the players, for you?
I think here's what I think it means. I think for a little while, it's going to be fairly plentiful still. I mean, I know that I cleared out Jasco. I bought a bunch from one of my distributors. I cleaned them out too. So I know I'm going to try to buy as much as I can, speculating that the market's going to go the way Neomax is gone.
Yeah, I remember... Sorry, I keep interrupting, but I remember when Neomax first got announced that it was gone. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, that's neat. I'll be fine." A few months, fine. A few months later, oh, and everything's gone. That's bad.
Yeah, now is the time where you'll want to go out. If you have a pet card that you've been thinking about building around, or that you really like, and say you're borrowing from a friend to play in a week every week, now is the time to go out and get those cards. If I had my own collection, I'd be trading really hard to get a playset of Finale, so that's my favorite card in the set. Probably some Dragon Cannon, stuff like that. But there's a lot of ultra rares in this set, so it's hard to say which one is going to be a lot of good ultra rares, I should say. So it's hard to say if any of them are going to go the way of Trinity Geyser.
I mean, I think it's pretty likely. If I was going to guess, some cards that would go that way could be Darkside Master and Ultimate Undead.
Yeah,
I'm looking over the list, and Hanya is actually jumping out to me because Ultimate Undead, Darkside Master, they're very good. They're very splashy. I don't know if they're kind of like the unique effect where they'll be, if you want to play Order this week, you have to have Hanya, or else you just can't beat anything. Whereas if you have a Darkside Master deck, it might still work if you don't have the Darkside Masters.
Yeah, Hanya is extremely powerful if you're playing weapons on any of those symbols.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked if there's a run on them.
Yeah, really, it's just breaker one on everything. You don't even need the weapons. I mean, it's insane if you put 3 weight in their card pool, put 3 cards in their card pool, effectively 3 points of difficulty. But even just +1 can mean a whole lot against a spam deck or early in the game.
Yeah, I should look at that card a little bit more. I definitely have. It was one of those cards I ignored before Gen Con because I'm like, all right, I had to put a lot more effort and figure out what I want to do with this. And I don't have the time for it. And now that it's over, I've got to go back and look at all those cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just now getting to Darkside Master. And that was like the most standout ultra rare of the set for me.
So, long story short, for our viewers out there, If you need ultra rares from Darkstalkers, now's going to be the time before they're $60 a piece.
And really, I mean, it's kind of the story of the world where, you know, if there's a hardship, you can actually take advantage of that. So let's say you have like a set of Ultimate Undead sitting in your binder, or sitting in your deck building binder. You can probably trade those for pretty much anything you want if you find someone who's looking for them, because they're really interested these days. And so if you have cards you think that you don't care about very much, it's good to keep those cards moving, and keep that people play with the cards, keep the market flowing.
Don't just sit on cards and never use them.
That's bad for the market, as we discussed last week.
Yeah. Don't be a Jeffrey Giggles con.
Hey, if you want to be a collector and own a set of every card, that's great too. But you can probably.
But
cards are in demand.
He used his Trinity Geysers for the first time 2 weeks ago. And he's had those since, like, Gen Con last year, at least. When I traded for them for all of them.
Hey, man, Geysers a tricky card to play with sometimes.
Yeah, it's not as easy as low attack, low attack, low attack, low attack, Murakumo win.
Yeah, like those cards don't even have combo on them. Like, he doesn't have to think about how he orders them. It's just whichever.
He built his Geyser deck. I'm the one that built Snake Man. Blame me. He built his own Geyser deck.
So, moving on to our next topic. Last week, we had a challenge. We all had to build decks using cards that were valued at $5 or less. And I'd like everybody to report back on how their evening went. We'll start with Kevin, who built Skullman.
So, first of all, my first thought when you said $5 or less is like, oh, what the hell is this? It should just be Pauper. But I'm really glad you didn't, actually. My deck was a Skullman deck, and the clever, like, the funny, like, joke thing that made me want to play Skullman was that I got to play Zero Shiki Hao Kyaku and Kim's Ultra Rare one-check kick. And that's obviously not a Pauper card. And I got to play several rare foundations as well that, were just good role players, and not insanely expensive like a Nevos or anything, but just stuff like Skullman's rare No Other Purpose and Champion of Justice that just kind of, they're not commons, but that you just control the board and have more damage pump. My deck was a really spammy deck with lots of 3 and 4 difficulty attacks. I actually played Etten Cells and Mistral just to get some more momentum. And it was kind of built around building up to one of my 2 kill cards were either Zero Shiki or Splendor Love, which are both awesome when all of your attacks have like printed 3 damage. And your Skullman, people never know if they need to block or if they need to just take hits. And so I attacked a lot and then built a little bit if I didn't have more attacks or if I thought I was going to kill them. And I just made them play the tricky guessing game of, do I want to take this and let him Splendor Love me, or do I want to block it and then not have any game plan going into the next turn. So it's a really really high pressure deck. Sometimes it was really hard to actually kill people because my attacks were so tiny, but I managed to go, I think 3-0. We played 3 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Went undefeated with it. I lost a couple games in.
It was hard to win.
Rounds.
Yeah, I know you. Yeah, I know I got 1 game on you.
No, yeah. We played. You got a game where you went first and then destroyed 2 of my 3 foundations on turn 2. That one was pretty tough.
Which is an excellent segue into Matt Hughes. You played Dr. Wily.
Yep.
How did Dr. Wily treat you?
I played the good old Dr. Wily, and using my favorite card combination ever since Sean showed it to me when the set first came out, Madariku. It's the 4/4 asset from the Darkstalkers 10. That it's R destroy an asset, or R destroy a ready foundation. After you play an attack, you destroy one of their foundations, and it's playable by either player. So when you're Wily, your response does double time of you instantly replace the foundation you destroy. So you just +1 on them every time you play an attack once a turn. And they can't use it against you as long as you don't care about your foundations. Like, they use it against you, they -1 a foundation. You just turn one of yours into a blank.
Yeah, there was actually a situation when we played where I was gonna Madariku you, but to turn down a Kapoken training, but then you just tapped to pass control check, so I didn't have to.
Yeah, it was awkward because I had foundations in that deck that I did care about. because I forgot how I normally played Wily. But like a lot of the things that I would normally run, like the one difficulty ones like Champion and Muay Thai, weren't legal. So I was just tossing a bunch of random things in at the last second. And then it just played big throws because the other part of it is E commit plus 4 damage, and he also has a damage pump for foundations destroyed each turn. So it would do things like throw like 15 damage throws once it start going, and you just answer Ophidiophobia and stuff. Didn't work out that well that night because Lilith is pretty good. I played that round 1. My friend Josh is finally getting a handle on this game and is doing better and better each week. And when we put him into this tournament where people couldn't run all the fancy Trinity geysers, and it was all cards that he knew, because he doesn't know some of the more expensive cards because he doesn't bother to read them, but he knew all the cards we were playing. And I think he went 2-1.
Good for
I
him.
think he was second place.
Well, guess who did not do so well?
Sean O'Brien.
Sean O'Brien.
What happened?
So I decided, since I've never gotten to use Ever Hopeful, to use Ever Hopeful. And I built a Felicia deck. I think I went full Pauper on it. I didn't run any rares or ultra rares at all, regardless of their value. And I built a deck.
Which resource symbol did you play off of?
I built off of air. So I built a deck. I used a lot of Felicia's attacks, and it just didn't go well. There were 2 5-handers in the tournament, which I had kind of thought, oh boy, I'll prey on 5-handers all night. Except it's really hard to kill Clark and Goro with puny 5 damage moves.
Yeah, you need some pumps. You got to pump you up.
That being said, game 1 against Goro, I got a turn 1 Ever Hopeful, and it was a complete misery fest until the guy eventually packed up his cards and said, let's go to game 2, because he never had more than 2 foundations in play at the start of his own turn. By the time we got to the end of the match, he won game 2, and game 3 was real close. I was in Ever Hopeful land, and I was ever hopeful to draw the game out to a draw because I couldn't get enough damage on the board. And he was able to run an ultra. He was able to run Goro's ultra rare. It's a Kyo
Tendochi.
Yeah, 0 low 8 or 0 mid 8 or 1 mid 8.
1 mid 8.
One mid 8. Turns out it's really, really good in him when, if you block it, which you have to block when you're 20 vitality, and you give his next move like plus 10 damage. Oh, by the way,
he burns you because you have a handful of cards because you're playing an air deck.
And then, oh, by the way, the next move's a throw.
Should have been playing some Leaf Shields.
Towards the end of that game, I figured out.
Share a symbol with Leaf Shield.
I know.
I figured out the best way to actually utilize Ever Hopeful, being the first time I've ever played it, and started bouncing. Instead of bouncing cards that were annoying, I just started bouncing non-blocks, which against 5-handers is pretty brutal, because they've got cards that they can't even like try to play as blocks and fail. And
yeah, you get the situation. The nightmare scenario for a 5-hand sizer is you start your turn with 6 cards in your hand, and you can review step, but you can't possibly draw any more cards, so you're never going to attack them. And so it's like, I'll build and pray.
Second round, I played against my wife, and she was playing Rikuo. He was pretty cool, actually. Turns out the slam range thing was not as hard to do as I had thought, and why I always kind of said, forget this guy, he's not any good. And that game ended up going to a draw because we were both in an odd situation where I couldn't put enough damage on the board to kill her, and I kept putting all of her non-blocks in her hands, and she wasn't drawing anything good. So, ended in a draw. Game 3, I had to play one of our new players. I played Jade, and she... game 1, I did the same thing I did to the other 5-handers because she was playing Clark, and made it so she could never play anything new. It was always the same cards, couldn't review or anything. Game 2, I had this harebrained scheme to switch to Robert, and it went so very badly. I scooped after about 5 minutes and realized that there was no way I was going to win that game. And then in game 3, I got edged out by Clark with Clark's throws. So for the night, I went
Big
0-2-1. Not so great. I learned a lot though. I mean, I learned that even building with cheap cards, you still got to make sure you have some manner of kill condition. And I've been on the receiving end of Ever Hopeful, and it feels pretty dismal. And I've been on the giving end of Ever Hopeful, and it feels really good to play it because it's just so much value.
Yeah.
Especially when you're Felicia and you've got a million momentum and you can just keep blocking with it when you know your opponent's just going to keep playing mid-zone attacks and bounce all that stuff.
But Sean, your record wasn't that good. Does that mean that card's not that good?
Obviously.
Clearly.
Obviously, it's terrible.
Is Never Hopeful not that Never Hopeful?
I'm ever hopeful that I will get better at playing Ever Hopeful.
Hey, I like it.
There we go.
It's a good point of view.
And with the state of the game, looks like I will get that opportunity. They released the state of the game last week. Didn't seem like there's anything too terribly exciting. Looks like they talked a little bit about the events that happened at Gen Con. They talked about the announcements that we made, which we all know about at this point: Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Cowboy Bebop, and the Dragon Ball Z board game. Bans. Much to my surprise and disdain, there were no bans. I'm ever hopeful that Ever Hopeful will get banned, but probably not. The big thing from the state of the game was changing venues for the World Championship. I'd really like to see a date for it because I want to buy my tickets nice and early, and I have to get Hughes a ticket because he won the Empire Circuit. Yeah. I'm sure I'll have to help Giggles get his ticket again.
You're gonna have to help me. You're gonna have to help me get on that plane. I've never been on a plane before.
You have a driver's license?
Wow.
Never been on a plane. I can figure all that out. Never been on a plane. Never been on a plane. I've been on a helicopter a bunch of times.
They're kind of different.
Yep. Helicopters are more fun.
And the really interesting thing for Vegas is that it's traditionally in the week between the Super Bowl and Valentine's Day, which are two fairly major events that I'm sure are quite popular in Las Vegas. This year there is no such week, so we'll have to see where they want to put it.
So I'm hoping they put it earlier, so they can put it the week between the championship games and the Super Bowl, because no one cares about the Pro Bowl. That'd be the perfect week.
I'm sure there are lots of prop bets on the Pro Bowl. I'm sure it's very active. They'll bet on anything, Sean O'Brien.
But I don't care about the Pro Bowl.
No. I mean, no one except the most degenerate cares about the Pro Bowl.
Oh, let's not talk about football, though, because I'm very depressed. So, World Championship moving to Las Vegas. I think it's going to have probably the biggest turnout we've had in years. I know Shane Duckworth is out there pounding the pavement every single day to grow his play group. So, very excited for that. I think Vegas is a lot more accessible for our international players.
Can we just clone Shane and put him in every major city?
You'll have to ask him about that.
We have the technology.
But then we can't make it so multiple Shanes can show up to a tournament. Because then top 8 of the PTC would just be 8 Shane Duckworths.
We'll diversify him.
They'll diversify themselves.
They'll all play Water Gemini, man.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so in other news, looks like Jasco Games on their front page, I don't know if anybody's noticed, announced a partnership with, and I'm going to mispronounce this, Linvander Studios.
No, I think you got that right.
So, looks like, based on what they said, they're going to be helping us out with some upcoming board games. They're going to help with the Street Fighter game. Presumably, they may be helping with the Dragon Ball Z game. Almost seems like an implication that there's going to be even more board games.
Which is probably going to be, like, for the most part in the beginning, like the Mortal Kombat board game, the DBZ one, Cowboy Bebop one.
Cowboy Bebop, yeah.
Like,
and who knows what other licenses might be in the pipeline.
Yeah. Like, I'm
Because
sure
there's not a lot to talk about it.
Yeah. Because I'm sure it's more of those down the line for a while. Like, we might see another board game in the future, because it looks like they're trying to become a board game company as well, but That's obviously going to be their major focus because they already have figures for a lot of those. And DBZ, the board game, is the only thing they could do with it right now. Well, sleeves and playmats as well. Which, that is what I'm hyped for. Considering someone last year, I believe, when we were running a con, bought the playmat out from under me that I wanted from Sean.
Did I?
Or
Oh,
Dragon
No,
Ball
someone
Z?
else. You had a Gotenks one. And I was like, I had in my mind of, oh, I'm working. I should let other customers buy the playmat. But I still hid it at the bottom of the pile. And someone went all the way to the pile. I was like, oh, cool, Gotenks. Bought it.
oh man. I would have sold it to you for the same price.
I know. I had this idea in my mind of letting customers have first access. Being fair.
So, hopefully, announcing that they're going to be working with another studio is going to make it so the next board game doesn't take 2 years to come out.
Yeah.
From the end of the Kickstarter to release.
Yeah, I'm curious if they're going to be, producing art assets for the game or helping with like board and model design, or if they're going to be helping come up with the mechanics of the game and design those. But in any case, I think you're absolutely right that it'll help speed up the process, however they're doing it. I'm sure that's probably the major concern they have in mind.
Yeah, like if they have a proper release schedule, I will play these things. Because I want to do Goku versus Ryu and completely destroy Ryu.
I mean, I'll absolutely play them. I was. I mean, right now, if you put Ryu against pretty much anyone in UFS, he's gonna like punch them in the face really hard, at least. Like, I mean, you almost turned one Jade the other week. You could probably do that to Goku too. Like, oh, we gave Goku's an 840. It's like, okay, whatever. You just didn't draw a low block. Here's 40 damage.
You're dead.
I'm Ryu. Plus 6.
So, the St. Louis PTC, that occurred last weekend. Looks like it was kind of a small turnout. I think they had
16 people.
I saw 16, yeah.
But, I mean, can't complain. That's a new venue for PTC. It's coming off of Gen Con, and a lot of people have very empty wallets following Gen Con.
You got that UFS refractory period.
Wah, wah. Got nothing but ones in my wallet.
So almost the story of the tournament, perhaps, or the water decks. Obviously, the champion was Water Lilith, and the undefeated Swiss champ, Water Gemini Man, as well as the only two decks that have actually been posted, both water decks.
Yep.
Oh man, they better hurry up. They've only got a few more days to post those decks, so the event is nullified according to Jasco Games rules.
Oh.
We wouldn't want Shane's buddy to lose his plane ticket. He needs that to get to the Rochester CCG 2K.
Yeah. You should definitely use it for that. Value.
In fact, everybody should use their money to get to the Rochester CCG 2K.
I mean, it's like getting a free plane ticket to get free beer.
Beer's great.
That's a good outcome of a pro tour is free beer. So I'll accept that.
So water seems to be doing very well right now.
Yep. I got beat up by a Water Jada deck today.
Yo, Jada's beast.
He put Wiley to sleep.
The kicks.
Like, Wiley started getting unsleeved.
Bro, let me tuck you in right now.
Now, I did notice, if I remember correctly, looking at the top 8 results, there was a 5-hand size that snuck in, wasn't there?
Yep. There was a
Goro was 6th seed. But it was actually pretty interesting. Before the finals, I remember noting this, that there were 7 matches played. When the semifinals had finished, they were going to the finals. 5 of those 7 matches were imbalanced by hand size, so it was like a 7 versus a 6 or a 5 versus a 6. And every single match in the top 8 was won by the person with a greater hand size.
So, do you think that means we're heading into we're in a 7-hand size meta at this point?
I think it's a little bit indicative of that, yeah. I mean, I think that just having more cards is a very, valuable resource. It gives you a bit more consistency, and for a long time we were moving the other way, a 6-hand size meta, you might say, where you went to a tournament and half of the tournament would be 6-hand size, and the 7-hand size would be like, oh wow, that guy's really brave. He's taking the Tim Keefe challenge this week. And I'm not sure if there's any one factor that really changed it, but I think we're certainly seeing it move the other direction now.
I think there's a culmination of things, like Moynihan Lost being gone definitely helped.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you might even just say that it's Chasm Buster, Divine Tribulation, and all of the other offensive tools that you had back then made 20 life just too little to even like risk.
Hmm.
I think
And
you
right
can
now,
still pretty offensive tools now. But
Oh, I'm not saying you can. I'm not saying that, like, I'm not saying the offense is bad or anything, but that, if it's tilted a little bit more towards defense,
mhm.
then it just makes it safer to play 7 hand size and to get that build consistency on turn 1.
yeah, and it seems a little risky right now. Six hand size have always had kind of the advantage where they play a few just bigger, faster moves. Because I think you can put yourself on fewer cards in your hand because you're not as likely to lose 26 vitality in one turn, which isn't to say
Yeah.
it's possible. It's impossible, but it can happen. But usually you're safer to use your life total as a resource, and I don't think the tools are there to make those kinds of moves as often as we used to. I mean, I think a move that could still do that is like Nevos. I think it's a great example of a card that six-handers love because it can just get ridiculously big.
Yeah, so like kind of like one card does just like pulls a lot of the work for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like
Right.
yeah.
But looking at, kind of the results, now I don't think that's the case with the Gemini Man deck because it seemed like that ran some bigger moves. It wasn't all just 3-diff spam attacks.
That Gemini Man deck it's very middle of the road, I think. It's
Mm-hmm.
very reversal centric, and it's very much about kind of sculpting the game in your favor, outbuilding people, and then taking advantage of the late game power of stacked Gemini Man to
Right.
really push things over the line.
I mean, the Lilith deck, by her very nature, the way the deck building constraints you have with her, was stringing together a bunch of little moves off of water. And Etten Cells is still extremely powerful. That's going to be a card that you're going to see in tournament, I think, for a long time going forward, just because it's fast and it gets in there.
Yeah, I love that card.
And
I
you
love
can,
that this deck is finally considered really good.
and you can just
It's
grab
been really good for a long
so
time.
many cards with it.
Yeah, I mean, it puts you up a whole card, and if you play, I mean, I think the Lilith deck. I don't think the list has actually been posted anywhere.
It has.
But has it?
Yeah.
There's a thread in the deck building forums, but I don't see that. Oh wait, it's on UFS Ultra. That's what it is.
Oh,
I'm
hey,
gonna look at it.
the person I just looked at it. His deck list. The guy who posted it. He's actually watching our show right now because he's he's in the thing. I see what you did there. So
Haha.
hey, buddy, we're talking about your deck. Congratulations.
So, yeah, definitely. I think we're not even heading. We're in a 7-hand size meta right now. I think a lot of things. 7-hand size, I think, is just safer to play right now, and you almost have to play it because you need to be fast.
Well, I mean, you can build a fast 5-hand size deck, a fast 6-hand size deck, but if you want to build a deck that builds a really big staging area that's resilient to ever hopeful, that's where you want to be a 7-hand size. If you want to build a deck that, finds a specific combination of cards and needs to say, okay, well, here's my Etten Cells, and I'm going to go find a Mistral, and I need a Kuga to tap down your Coward Handed, and I need to find Shiranui no Mai. Then you want to be a 7-hand size for that. You don't see anyone playing, and there's no characters that really want to do it. But you don't really see very many 6-hand size Etten Cells decks. And similarly, actually, so the big, I think, my perception of Lilith, this might or might not be true, is that when you're playing against a smaller hand size one who has a lot of life, the deck revolves around, on a fundamental level, the cards Improved Design and Marry, because they make all those little attacks into real cards.
Yeah.
And they add up a lot of damage real fast.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see any 6-hand size characters playing those because, like the Lilith deck, you'll draw your hand. If you find 2 Improved Designs and a Marry, then even if your opponent has an Ever Hopeful, it won't be enough to take you off of that to set you back.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll be able to put together your big, 50 damage kill turn the next turn.
Yeah, Improved Design I think is really good for 7-handers because they have extra cards to pitch to start taking up that damage one, especially if they're going to go all in.
Yeah, I played it in Skullman, and it was really awkward.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't do much.
I kind of want to play that card in Jiffany at some point.
Yeah.
8-hander. The problem is,
Jiffy-
any deck that I would build with Improved Design that's aggressive on those symbols, I'm like, I might as well be like Lilith or BB Hood or Gemini Man.
I could imagine a pretty good like fire Jivany Jamber going on.
Now, with the 7 hand size, I remember reading a thread a little while ago on the forums regarding, I believe it was called, quote, "Your realistic answers to Never Hopeful," and where this guy went on this tirade about how he can't play 5 hand size throws anymore. And what do you guys think? Because there are people who are always going to want to play 5 hand size.
I don't
How do
I
you
don't get that.
how do you survive in this? Other than putting your 5 handers up for the next X months.
Well, you sit down to a tournament, and not everyone's playing Ever Hopeful, and so you can still play a normal game against them. Not every Ever Hopeful deck plays 3 or even plays 4. No one plays 4.
Well, not
Only
even
a few people play 3, so you don't always play against them when they have the Ever Hopeful draw.
well, not even just Ever Hopeful. I mean, against the 7 hand size menaces running around of Gemini Man and Lilith, where they can just make these super fast, gigantic attacks that you have to block, but they're going to play like 14 of them a turn.
Well, it's I think that with 5 hand size more so than a lot of decks, sometimes if you're playing a 6 or 7 hand size deck, you can sit down. If you're playing a really good deck, like Tournament Caliber deck, you can sit down and say, well, if I assume you draw literally the best cards you possibly can right now, I can still beat you. I can cover that. Like, I can stop you from winning this turn, no matter how perfect your draws, how perfect your control decks are. With 5 hand size, you live in reality a lot more, and you live in reality. People don't draw perfect. People don't draw turn 2 Shirino Inomai build 6 go. People don't draw like 500 damage. Like I actually with my Skullman deck before the tournament, I sat down and goldfished it and tried to do 100 damage on turn 6. That doesn't happen in the real life. And so with 5 hand size, you play with your life total as a resource more. So you play out your whole hand a lot more often. You play out only one card as a deck as a block, because if you turn it into a resource game, your opponent has to respect your damage output. And so if they can't attack you safely because it's cost them too much resources, then you can pull ahead that way. And you can, like, if you're at like 20 life, like you've just played more cards than your opponent's at like 10 life now. They have to like be afraid of your perfect draw where you draw 3 throws and they take half damage on all of them and die. So it's kind of a different equation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to those folks for the time being.
For sure.
It's going to be a hard row. I don't think 5 hand size is unplayable. I mean, I think Goro and Clark are both real things for 5 hand size.
Yeah, I played Jeremy Ray a couple weeks ago, and it was really interesting. It was a lot of fun.
Jeremy Ray's a thing. I think people who want to play other 5-handers are going to run into some trouble. Like Dr. Cossack became, I think, a lot more difficult to play.
All right, so Garrett Brett. So I don't know if we had scheduled to talk about this, but since we don't have the deck list from the Pro Tour, how about we talk about the deck list from the Calgarian? I was gonna call it like the mini Pro Tour or something, but like the Calgary C tier brew off. Have you guys looked at those?
No.
So they decided to take the challenge of Shinji Mamura, saying, well, these characters are bad. They're in B tier and C tier, and they're just worse than everyone else. So this week they had 4 players, and they had Dr. Cossack, K-Dash, 2-Dot from Neomax, Quickman, and Crashman.
Crashman, I remember someone was supposed to play him.
Shut your mouth.
Maybe you could pick up some tips from these Calgary kids. I mean, I've talked about Toy Soldiers' decks a lot because they're incredible. They're really good for proper decks. I mean, these are really cool. And I'm really thinking about building that Dr. Cossack deck that Garrett had because it looks awesome and it's using a lot of pet cards I've been trying to find a home for, and it does a great job with it. So the Dr. Cossack deck specifically is playing. The cards that stood out to me are Mukuru Fuji, which can't be blocked by cards with keyword abilities. So Ever Hopeful, there you go. And Ring Toss Champion that adds 3 damage to your second attack in a turn, or if you can name the top card of your deck, you just get a draw card that isn't the top card of your deck.
Oh yeah,
so
that card.
It's got these ways to build, like it's got a lot of card draw in it because it's got Siberian Scientist, Summer Heat, Sagaki Offering, Ring Toss Champion, more card draw like Dauntless Hero, I think. And so against Ever Hopeful, you can actually just out-resource them, and if they're playing Ever Hopefuls, you know, you have 34 life and damage reduce cards and blocks and Templar. So who's to say they'll actually be able to finish you off? You know, like your deck did. If you played against this deck, you'd get like it would be an awful time for everyone because you're not making any progress. It'll take you like 7 attack turns to kill him, and by that time he's got all kinds of resources to defend himself.
Right.
Even getting Ever Hopeful.
So speaking of decks that we want to build,
I kind of went off on a tangent. I know where I'm going. So yeah,
this weekend we've got Kevin's gonna be going to 2 events.
Yeah.
We got our Friday night standard. Kevin, what are you gonna play for that?
I'm playing Duo Long, the Dream.
Watch out for this deck. I had to play test against it the other night.
So can I tell everyone about my Duo deck because I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, talk about your loop that's gonna get banned.
Shut the fuck up, Sean O'Brien. So Duo Long, he has 2 abilities, and he is down there on that tier list. And if he's not, y'all are wrong. He's not very good. But he has 2 abilities, and the first one is that he makes any attack into his choice of mid or high and gives it +1 speed. And what this means for strategy wise is that I can play Skull Barrier and full block any attack in the game. Unless you have your own zone change to fight back. And then reversely with my Skull Barrier, it'll be a 1 high for 3 Skull Barrier on the reversal. And if it hits you, it'll go to my momentum, where I can retrieve it with either Hakeshu of Death or Sightseeing. And so I'll just block with Skull Barriers all day.
But that's not the secret sauce.
So Duo's second ability is 4+. Your opponent reveals the top 3 cards of their deck, and they have to remove every non-attack card from them from the game. And they put the attacks back on top, and they can shuffle so they don't get their checks screwed up, which is fine. So it gives me the advantage in that in any kind of like stalled out long game, I'll probably deck you because I'll attack you. I'll like remove a couple cards from the game. You know, you'll build your staging area up, and soon like you'll just run out of cards way before me because I'm just losing cards to my control checks and to my staging area. You're losing them to your control checks, your staging area, plus just getting ripped straight out of your deck. So the secret sauce that Sheldon O'Brien wants me to tell you about is the combo that made me want to build this deck. The reason that I came to Duo was I spotted this interaction where you have 2 Finale Rosos, 2 copies of that card in your hand. You have a high block in your card pool, and you haven't dealt damage to your opponent this turn. What you can do is you can play a Finale Roso, and then do its ability and then a combo E on it. It says remove 1 attack in your card pool in either player's card pool from the game. 1 card, actually, I think. It might be attack, in any case. And its first ability replaces the removing from game with putting it in your momentum. And you can choose Finale Roso itself with this. You add the Finale Roso just from your card pool to your momentum. It gets dropped or aborted. You know, it's kind of we're calling it dropped, I think now in the rules. And your opponent doesn't get a chance to block. It never deals damage, and it just goes back to your form. So you play the second Finale Roso, then you enhance with Hakeshu of Death to pick up the first one, and then you put it in your momentum. Then you play the Finale Roso, Hakeshu of Death, put it in your momentum, and so you pay 2 life each time, and you get an enhanced step. So that means as Duo, you mill your opponent, and as like Lord Raptor, you might be able to be triggering Ultimate Undead. As Skullman, you can draw your deck, but Skullman already draws his deck, so I'm not sure if that's relevant very much. So that's like okay. But if your opponent has 3 attack cards on top of their deck after they've been milled a few times, nothing happens. You're just paying 2 life to kill yourself. The key and the card that made me really excited about this to actually want to play Duo is Mistral. That card that Lilith decks are playing just to get Kunai and a momentum for their Shiranui no Mas. Mistral does the same thing. It says add an attack with printed damage 3 or less from your card pool to your momentum. You can choose itself and drop the attack, and Hakeshu of Death loop. And Mistral crucially has the second ability that your opponent mills 4 cards. They discard the top 4 cards of their deck from the game. Discard the top 4 cards of their deck. They just go to their discard. And so that means they'll never be able to stack up enough attacks. They just can't stack up attacks at all. And Duo's ability just rips it apart. And if we stall the game out for a little while, I'm still near full life, and get 2 Mistrals, I can actually deck you out really fast. And pay a bunch of my life to do it. And then, you know, I don't actually have to remove your entire deck from the game. I just have to get it to the point where when you draw your hand size for your turn, and then have to make control checks to play attacks, you won't be able to make enough control checks before you lose, before you run out of cards.
And so,
And
oh,
the important thing for this deck is that I don't have to kill you by milling because Finale Rosso is a 5 high for 4 multiple 2 for duo, and the other really big card is Nevos, which is a high block. So if I play Nevos as my first form, make it a high, pump up the damage to like 12 or something, you don't want to just eat 12 damage against my deck full of multiples and little like pokey slaps and stuff. That'll probably just lead you to like you'll just die to my little hits, and so you'll block it, and then I'll Finale Rosso combo you with a Kaiju of Death or whatever I'll do. And that's the deck. That's what I'm excited about.
and what are you gonna play on for your event on Saturday in Buffalo for extended?
Hughes, you want to address duo at all? Because I'm pretty excited.
I like it, and it just seems really annoying to play against.
Yeah, just imagine walking into Skull Barrier every turn forever, and getting your deck slowly ground beneath you, and then then you like show up with just like Lilith or something, and I'm like, well, those are really fast. I can't do anything about that. I guess I'll just die.
Yeah.
So this was the deck I was going to play in St. Louis, by the way, if I had gone to that event. And this is the deck. If you saw my social media posts, I was really excited about this deck when I came up with it. But the deck I'm going to be playing this weekend, I don't know what exactly it's going to be, but I picked my character. I'm going to play BB Hood because in extended, BB Hood gets a few really thrilling cards. Namely, she gets on 2 of her symbols, Evil and Fire, she gets Flash Lightning and Chasm Buster. So if you have a +2 damage lying around, Flash Lightning is a 0 mid 6. That if they block it, it goes to your momentum. If they don't block it, you draw a card, and it doesn't add to percussive difficulty for high or mid attacks.
That sounds fun.
That's insane. And then it also combos Shield Ram. And then on Chasm Buster, you need +1 damage, and then at the 6 mid for 8, draw cards on 2. That's just ridiculous. Then
I feel bad for those kids in Buffalo.
the other 3 cards I'm excited about, and this is where it gets hard because they don't chain well enough. Are Pummel Smash, Z-Maze Wheel Kick, which are both 1 damage attacks that tap your opponent's board out really well. So if you play your Z-Maze Wheel Kick, stun 3 them, and then if it hits for 2, you get a draw card off BB Hood.
Are you gonna play Toughest in the Universe?
I forgot about Toughest in the Universe. That might be it. So I might play Fire BB Hood.
Is your other
That might be
card
enough damage.
Turn Thruster?
The other card is Turn Thruster. So all these stun attacks, that's a 5 high for 8, stun 1.5. Like that's a stun, like stun 2 high for 8, draw for 9 with BB Hood, and if it hits, I get a draw card. If I play Dragon Lifter, it's a 6 high for 9, draw a card, stun 2. Like it's too hype. It's so much, but I don't know how to fill in the pieces. I don't know if Fire has enough like counter meta stuff because you can do some crazy things in extended, and I don't want to just be like I'm sitting there playing an aggro deck with no speed pumps in it. You know.
Let's see. Hughes isn't coming to the tournament this Friday, but what would you have played, Hughes?
I was going to finally try out my Life Dimitri deck. This is an idea that I had kicking around from before Gen Con of just kind of running his main support of Darkside Master with his throws. And then also running his finisher, Search Snake. So you just sit there and just slowly grind him out with some throws, some Surveyor to bring them back and just slowly hit them out. Gain some life, and he can flip over any of the onboard answers to throws, like a Phidiophobia. He can just knock them out with his first F. So he's pretty resilient to decks that try to stop him, and he's also a good answer to Everhopeful. And then your kill turn would just be like, play a Darkside Master, put in another Darkside Master, Search Snake and multiple it out, and then I get to pretend that I'm Snake Man and have 21 damage across my multiple 3. And
So
maybe
basically
run some of his other damage pump as well. Like he has the, if you gain life +1 damage, so like that's kind of neat with negative gain.
So we're playing the 3/1/1 Slam Mark Slam Wisniewski Life Dimitri special.
Oh wait, was his deck really life?
Yeah, there's a picture somewhere out there of a Surveyor in play. It's just like his Turbo deck.
That card has Earth
There's
too.
also throws and Surveyor.
You know that card has Earth too. And so
We're
does
playing Earth
Dimitri.
deck. We're playing Earth deck.
He could be playing Earth. I don't know.
No.
It was life.
You don't play Earth when you can play you don't play Earth when you can play Revoke and
And caught
Templar
red-handed and Templar, yeah.
Caught Red-Handed and Dust in the Wind. Like you just don't play Earth.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's like that was,
Unless you want to play the team and quintuple prototypes on one, then you play Earth.
but yeah. Yeah, that was my same thoughts with life. All those cards that you named, like, because when I was trying to decide something for Gen Con, I was like, all right, I know I want to run Caught Red-Handed and Revoke, and just all these cards that have Void and Life on it. And I was like, I was just trying to come down to, all right, what do I want to run as my finisher? And Rain Flush was the toss-up that got it for me being Void. But if I had thought a bit more about Summer Heat, maybe I would have played Life. But
Sean, what are you playing this week?
So I decided to crawl back under the hood of a classic Rochester deck. That's Snake Man. I crawled under the hood. I think I've made some tweaks that are going to make the deck a little more powerful, maybe even a little more resilient to some of the things I had trouble with at Worlds. And I don't know if Jeff's planning to go to Michigan, and I'm considering running this deck if I don't find something I like better. Because right now I'm having a hard time finding something that I'm really excited about. So that's where I'm going to go for now. Plus, I want to get some reps in. I want to see if I can play it as good as Jeff did, because if I can't, then I probably should quit UFS.
Yeah.
And
I like how that's the benchmark for people for the bottom tier. It's like, if I'm not better than the second place world guy and 2x turbo champion, then I might as well just quit.
I mean, I have won twice as many cards as Giggles has, so I mean, I think it's a reasonable bar for me to set for myself.
And hey, it's a game of luck as well as skill. And if you can't play a deck as well as Giggles, like you're not going to win at all because he's got a lot more luck than anyone.
That's right. So I mean, that wraps up, I think, everything we're going to cover for tonight. I want to talk about some upcoming events, and we got a new one in our schedule here. First of all, I can finally stop talking about the St. Louis PTC. That's done. Felt like we've been talking about that for a good while. I'm glad that one's in the books.
Are we going to talk about it next week when we get the deck list, though?
We are going to talk about it a little more, but I don't have to put it in the announcements.
Okay, yep.
Hopefully, I'll have the deck lists to talk about tomorrow night. So if there's anyone who watches this, send me your deck lists.
Hey man, stop trying to cross promote your shows. We're talking about upcoming events like the Michigan Pro Tour.
The Michigan Pro Tour coming up on September 26th in Warren, Michigan. I'm going to be attending that event. I believe Kevin's attending.
Oh, yeah.
Matt, will you be going to this event?
Can I climb into your car and sleep on the floor where you are?
We can strap you to the roof, but you'll have to find your own place to stay in Michigan.
Oh, okay, that's a problem.
I mean, I'm sure maybe Jeremy Ray will let you cuddle up next to him.
Ooh, he's got a beard.
He does have a beard.
He'll keep me warm at night.
So that's coming up at the end of September, the PTC in Michigan, which is always a good time. Hopefully we'll have a good turnout for that. In October, the 24th of October is the Poughkeepsie PTC at Champion Games.
Champion Card Collector. I've been going there since I was like 12. I think I should know the name.
You really got to update that on this.
Yeah, I've never updated the name of the store, so I've had to guess every week. That's coming up on the 24th. Poughkeepsie is a great town to go to, unless you want to fly there, because flying there is awful. But the best way to get there is to fly into New York and then take a train up to Poughkeepsie. It's not as dreadful as you think. Just be careful in the subways. Following that, only a week later in Winnipeg is their PTC, where it'll be Clint Badger, Garrett Brett, Garrett's Butler, Moose. That's going to be a good PTC. I think the Calgary guys will come out with their full tech and give the guys in Winnipeg a thorough whooping.
I cannot wait to see the decks from that one. It's going to be like completely like I can't even imagine how insane the decks are going to be.
All nonsense.
I will be sorely disappointed if there aren't like the entire bottom, like the entire C tier from the tier list thread is represented and like some total nonsense that I'm like, holy shit, how did I never think of that together before?
They need to
Yeah.
make Raiden good.
Like
Send me
something
that.
that's like, I want to see like a deck with a card that it literally can't play as a form, and like it won the tournament because of that card.
That's Calgary for you.
Yeah, that's Calgary, that's Church, that's like the whole fucking community up there. It's gonna
So
be hype.
the week following the Winnipeg PTC is the Rochester
Wow.
CCG 2K.
I actually didn't even realize. I thought we were like a week later than that.
No, we are the following week.
Wow.
Here in good old Rochester, New York. Everybody, if you're planning on going, get your plane tickets now. They are starting to climb in price. There is, I think, some space left at Sawyer Street. Is there any space left in the Cave, Hughes?
I don't know. I need to confirm how many people from Poughkeepsie are actually coming. It's anywhere between like 3 and 7 at the moment. So once I figure
Hopefully
that
there
out,
will-
for-
There'll be space up for grabs probably until our Pro Tour, at which point they'll finally commit and lock in.
yeah,
Or sorry, up until the
that's
Poughkeepsie
a
Pro Tour.
yeah. Once I go and talk to them in person, it's like, all right, guys, figure it out.
Yeah, it's always first come first serve. So
I mean,
Yeah,
there
so
are
lock
a
it in.
good number of relatively inexpensive hotels near our airport.
I know there's a hotel on 390 that's probably not 2 miles from the venue. Honestly,
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's a lot
So,
of hotels not too far away from it.
hmm There's a lot of food nearby. There's going to be beer at the tournament. All sorts of good stuff.
Gonna have
what
some
time
whirly
does
ball.
what time does the Burger Bar open on Saturdays?
They open at 11:30.
All right, so like round 5, huh? Round 3, more like.
Let's see. Friday night, we are going to go to the new Lasertron they just opened in Henrietta, which features laser tag and better than Whirly Ball, Whirly Ball.
Yeah, Whirly Ball, but with like machines that were built, maybe not even necessarily like since I was born.
Where you don't have to like turn the crank around to try to get into reverse. You just use a joystick. It's a lot of fun. Kevin and I are savage cheaters.
What did I do?
Let's see. We run into each other. Remember, they're not.
You went into me. I just get in your way.
I mean, no, I try to cut you off and you just keep driving. I mean, that sounds like you're running into me.
I
Then
mean, there's. Yeah. Anyway.
after the Rochester PTC, we head down south.
The 2K. Get your branding right, buddy.
We're going to be heading down south to Nashville.
Yep.
In December, hopefully for some good weather, good barbecue, and a PTC. So, I haven't been to Nashville in, we went about 3 years ago. I think we went to a PTC, not PTC, just an event down there. We saw Scott Gaines, Joe Tonello, and friends, and they put on a pretty good time for us. So I'm sure they'll put on a good time for a full-blown PTC. So that's one for folks to consider if they're down in the Southland. So all good stuff.
Yeah, we'll see how if Nando can wrestle up some of his new players that he's been demoing to over this time.
Yeah.
See how much the Atlantic crew can put up.
All right, moving on. We got a couple of announcements through Rochester CCG. We do have playmats back in stock again. We were beat up pretty bad on the Mortal Kombat mats. They are back in stock. By the end of tonight, we should have copies of the 2015 Gen Con playmat available for sale.
Ooh.
We got a restock, like I said, on Darkstalkers. There is no more. We're refilled on sleeves from the Mega Man set. We've got a new person on our sales team to announce for stores south of the Mason-Dixon line. We do have Mr. Scott Gaines on board with us now.
The Godfather.
The Godfather of Legacy is selling for Rochester CCG. So if you know a store in the south that doesn't carry UFS and you want to carry it, get a hold of the Godfather. It's S Gaines, SGAINES at rochesterccg.com. For folks north of the Mason-Dixon line, you can always contact Matt Hughes at mhughes at rochesterccg.com. And for those of you who like to go oot and a boot up in Canada, you can always contact Clint Badger, C-Badger at rochesterccg.com to get UFS into your store. And remember, if Matt Hughes picks up a store that you recommended to him or you helped get started, he's giving you Templars.
Yeah. Because I'm awesome
Those
like
are
that.
Hmm?
I'm awesome like that.
Mhm.
Slash, I'll never use Templars, no matter how many of them I get.
Templar's a great card.
Yeah.
It's quite a good card.
Let's see. Don't forget to check out the other UFS community shows. Thursday nights is not Top Deck Heroes. That's us. Thursday nights is Total
Total
Justice
Justice
Gaming
Gaming.
with Joe Tonello, Matt Hughes, and Jesse Cervini in no particular order.
And sometimes it giggles.
Sometimes it giggles. Most times a guest star.
Yeah.
Let's see. Don't forget Fernando Aragon's show, the Super Aragon Brothers. I haven't heard from Southern Fried Interviews lately, but I always like to tune into what they have to say. And then the very infrequent, almost Sherlock level of infrequency show, the Scott Sudman Show. That's just what I'm going to call it. His UFS reviews are a blast.
And hopefully we'll have more content producers to talk about and to shout out who have actually put out something in the last month. Come on, guys, put it up.
Alrighty, so with that, I think we're going to call it a night. Good luck this weekend in Buffalo with your extended deck, Kevin.
Thanks. Anyone else in Rochester who wants to come out, let's go.
Yeah, if you
Kevin's
want to
off.
play extended on Saturday, it'll be a good time. Even if you want to just go to Buffalo and play standard on Saturday and get beaten up by extended decks, you'll learn a lot about the format, which is, for the most part, completely unexplored still, since there's only been one event.
Yeah.
And then other than that, we'll see you guys next week. Good night.
Night,
Night.
folks.